All right, testing, testing. Cool. We should be all set. Oh, let me turn my light on. I don't think that really helped with brightness, but we're just going to keep going anyways. Alrighty, hello Treehousers and everybody else that's joining us. My name is Megan. I am a student success specialist and teacher here at Treehouse. If you don't know what Treehouse is, we are a community and an online learning platform geared to help you learn how to code, how to design, and all sorts of stuff. You can check us out online at teamtreehouse.com. So today, you're probably wondering what we're doing, and pop this up. We're kind of working on a home automation tablet design. Essentially, what I'm doing is I got this Raspberry Pi for Christmas, and I kind of figured out what I want to do, but I haven't started on the actual building part yet. So we're going to do that together, or at least the design together. So you can see, essentially, I want to have a touchscreen tablet that is going to let me have a grocery list, like the daily weather, some to-dos, a calendar of events, and if we come up with some other ideas, or if you all want to share other ideas as we go along, please feel free. So yeah, we're going to be kind of putting that together. So essentially like a little touchscreen tablet that's going to show this information. Just kind of a fun way to practice playing around in Adobe XD, which is what I'm using today. And so let's give it a whirl. So because I'm using this, I kind of kept the persona really simple. It's just two millennials, which is my husband and I. We're new homeowners, so there's a lot of stuff that we have to remember to do around the house that we haven't had to remember before. We do have a pet, and we have a temporary pet. We have a foster kitty. We both work full time. I work from home. Um, some frustrations that I think everyone can relate to, just being super busy, being forgetful, and just having a lot to keep track of in life, and just trying to figure out what is a good way to help manage that kind of stuff. And some goals, just wanting to get more done in the day. You know, instead of sitting and watching 15 more episodes of Outlander, maybe I should, tackle some of the to-dos. If they're on this tablet, might help remind me of what they are. And I think that'll also help us feel more accomplished, because I think a lot of us, when you have stuff that you want to do, or that needs to happen, but you don't really want to do it, it does feel a little bit better to kind of like check it off of like a to-do list or something. So maybe it'll help us feel more accomplished throughout the day. And then more free time was the last goal I put up there. If we have a good set of to-dos and this tablet works really well, then it could end up giving us more free time at the end of the day. So that's kind of the overall topic of what we're doing today. So what we're going to start with is kind of the very beginning. I'm not going to sketch, like hand draw, just because it's a little hard to show on screen. But I'm going to kind of sketch in Adobe XD, and I'm just going to kind of walk through my thought process, let you all know what I'm thinking, my reasonings, and feel free, if you have an idea, if you want to share it, feel free to share ideas. If you have questions, feel free to share questions. We have someone watching chat for me, so please know that if you post your question, it may take a second for me to actually receive the question. So just be patient. I'll get to it as quickly as I can. So anyways, the first thing I thought of when I think of this app is there are four things. Maybe each thing, um, maybe each thing, oops, too much. Maybe each of these four things, 1, 2, 3, 4, each have their own space. So I'm going to go ahead and move over to our designing, and I'm just using, you can zoom out just a little bit because it's a little too close for me, just a Surface Pro. And so four things, easiest way to start with is 4 boxes that are all the same. So that's the first thing I'm going to start off with my idea. So 1 and 2. I'm just copying and pasting them just to make this a little bit quicker. 3 and 4. So 4 areas. We can totally, I'm not really sure like if there's a certain like weather should totally be in the top left and never be in the bottom right. So I'm just going to like put them in. So let's say this is our grocery list. And make sure I switch that. There we go. So the reason I switch that between these two is if I keep typing, let me switch it back. If I keep typing, if I keep going, it's just going to keep taking it out to the right. And what I want to do instead, if I switch it over, if I keep typing, you can see it drops it down beneath. So that's kind of the different way that text boxes work in here. So I like to remember to always switch it over so that you can see all the bubbles all the way around. Just because that way when I'm like resizing and doing different things, it works a little bit easier. So we have our grocery list. Let me just get that in the center. Put it at 30 is fine because we're just playing right now. So we have grocery list. Oh, there we go. That's why I was looking in the wrong spot. What was our other things? Let's do our to-dos. Shrink that and then recenter. Let's put our, trying to keep it same at 30. So it's the same spacing. What else did we add? We had the weather. Stretch that out. Recenter. Oops. Make sure it's at 30. Yep, there we go. And let's come over here. Make sure we're center. There we go. For some reason it's catching. Okay. All right. And then the last one was the calendar. Oh, I did hit that. Okay. So we have our 4 sections. Remember, we're just doing this super fast, just playing around, kind of sketching it out. Okay. So then within the grocery list and the to-dos, definitely, we're going to have a couple things. So let me come back over here and I'll zoom in. So on the grocery list, I kind of noted out some things that I figured is going to go into this. So you're going to want to see all the items in your list or have the ability to see all the items because it is going to be on a tablet. Let's say we have like a major grocery run. You probably won't be able to see, like 50 grocery items on the list. So maybe some way that you click a button so you can see the whole list. And then I'm definitely going to want to be able to create new grocery list items. I'm going to want to be able to see or read grocery list items so I can, see what I put in there. Probably update, as we go through, we might be like, oh, you know what? There's chicken in the freezer. Don't need chicken. But we can switch that out for ground chicken or something. So I need to update it. And then same thing, using delete to be able to remove items when I don't need it or when grocery shopping is complete. What program are you using? I'm using Adobe XD, which I think if you can see tiny down here, it has little tiny XD, but I'm using Adobe XD today is what I'm playing around with. And then for our grocery list items, the last thing I thought would be a fun feature is being able to add a note. Like maybe there's a specific kind of something that you want. I need flour, but I need a specific kind of flour for this recipe. So maybe you need to add a little note to it. So for to-dos, you probably see I have this word called CRUD, which is a popular acronym used by a lot of developers. So I wanted to bring it up because we're going to be designing things that relate to CRUD, which is this right here. CRUD is create, read, update, and delete. So when it comes to things like grocery lists, to-dos, a lot of those kind of things, even like calendar events, are going to have those same basic functions where you need to be able to create a new one, you need to be able to read them, update them, and delete them. So, fun acronym. Make sure that's on the quiz later, so remember that. But let's, since these two are similar, we'll kind of play around with these. And remember, we're still low fidelity, very basic wireframing. So I'm just going to use boxes. And I'm going to stay zoomed in here because we're going to do our grocery list. So keeping with being low fidelity, let's say that this is one grocery item, and I'm going to make the fill just a darker gray here, just so we can tell that it's filled with content. I think that makes it a little bit easier, and I feel like that's a little big, so I'm just going to reduce it a little bit. I'm going to drop it down. Let's keep it, the first one at 30, and then we'll probably keep the other ones a little bit closer together. So let's copy paste. So that's one grocery item. Let's do 15. Now what's fun is because I've done the first one, you can see it automatically snaps so that you keep the spacing the same. So I'll do another one. And you know what, just so I don't have to, oops, let's do this. Holding shift while I click allows me to click all of them. And then I'm going to just copy and paste. Doing that. And then I can come back in here and delete what I don't need. And it's reminding me of repeat grid, so that's also an option. 4, 5, 6. Oops, accidentally moved one. There we go. Okay, so that's our grocery list items. So that would be like the name of the item. I don't know if there's any other information I would want to put in there. Maybe just the name of the item, you know, keep it simple. If it is just the name of the item, then this is probably a little long. So I'm going to shorten it a little bit, which then might be able to give me some space to do this. And it's going to give me all these tooltips because I'm using a different computer than I usually do. So it's like, hey, you've never used XD on this computer before. So you'll probably see this pop up a lot. There we go. I'm going to move it up one just so we keep that 30 going. Okay, so we have that. We're going to copy, I'm going to group them too, which is Control G, or you can right click and you can hit group. And this just groups all of the elements together. So now they move as one instead of as individual pieces. So I'm going to do the same thing here. And I'm doing them separately because they're two different columns. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Control G. And now I'm going to group them together because they are one piece of content. So you can think of it as like things inside of things, like that present nobody ever wanted to get where you open the first box and then it's another box, then you open that box and it's another box, and you just keep going all the way to the end until you find like the tiny present that they gave you. I don't know, I've gotten those presents before, so let me know. So I'm sure somebody else out there has too. But that's a really great way to think about things when you're designing them, is things are in boxes. Everything that you design is kind of in a box, because when it goes in live onto, you know, the web or an app, it's going to have a container box around it, and it's called the box model. So I like to make sure, oops, I forgot to group them. I was talking about it and I never grouped them. So I like to kind of group things from little pieces up to bigger pieces. So then, like, if I were to continue this idea of where I grouped all the little ones in one column, then both columns, then I could group, you know, this whole section because it's all the grocery section. So that's kind of a fun way to think about it. But I'm going to copy this because we were talking about before how grocery lists and to-dos are kind of going to probably look the same because they're going to function very similarly. So I'm going to paste one, I'm going to get it in the middle, and I'm going to, looks like, because I'm trying to picture it off of there, because sometimes the guides don't quite work perfectly. There we go. Now it worked off. And sometimes it just takes it a second for the program to think, and then I'll put them in. So our to-dos. So what I'm, again, what I'm imagining is taking up these content boxes is the name of the item, so milk, and then probably some icons over here that are, delete and edit. And then this way it has enough space that I feel I always like to test too. That's kind of a little bit big. Let's bump that down. Maybe 20. Nope, that's still really big. Let's try 14. That looks better. So let's test it out with something a little bit longer. Now I'm just trying to think of what things I need at the grocery store so I could put them in here. Oh, we need a new cat litter. Oh, litter box is one word. And I'm going to change the color on that so that's a little bit easier to read. Just going to make it straight white. Oops. There we go. So this would be something like cat litter box. And that looks like it fits pretty good inside the box. Remember, I'm not worrying too much about exact spacing or anything like that. We're just kind of wireframing and keeping it low fidelity right now. So then just to test, I'm going to bring this over here. I'm going to delete this out, and I'm going to use Font Awesome icons, which are really great icons that are free to use. Oops. Oh, where'd the edit go? It was doing this to me earlier too. There it goes. Okay, I'm going to click Copy Unicode Glyph. So copied. Come back over here, and I'm going to paste. And you see it's a box, and you're probably thinking, that didn't work. But the font has to be the Font Awesome font for it to work. So now I need to make sure I go in and find Font Awesome free. And ta-da! You have a nice little edit icon. So I'm going to do edit, Control C so I can copy. I'm going to try and keep that as much as I can, kind of centered. And then I'm going to get a delete, or maybe like an X, just an X. If I just search X, does it help me out with that? There we go. Times. Okay. So X, click to copy, bring it back over, and I'm just going to override this, paste, and we have our X. And now you can tell the size looks a little bit off. So with icons, sometimes depending on how it's built, even though they're the same font size, you can see over here they're both 14, and 14. But when they're next to each other, the X looks a lot smaller, right? So this is one where when we get into nitty gritty stuff, I would probably bump this up a little bit. It's like 16, that looks a little bit closer. So just for an example of how one of these might look. Oh, and this, I did cat litter box, we're on the to-dos, but it's kind of a to-do and a grocery item list because I really need to pick a new one up. So I feel like that looks pretty good. That looks like it will contain the information pretty well. There's a good amount of spacing here for longer, grocery list or to-do items. And to-dos, they might also have, like more content. It might be like, cat litter box, but then underneath it'll probably, I might add some notes, that detail like, oh, we need a litter box that does this for these reasons. And maybe when I click on this, it'll expand so I can see all the notes about it on the to-do. But we'll get into that stuff later. So that's kind of a quick idea on both of those. And remember, this is just my first idea. We're going to try out as many as we can with the time we have. But let's pop down to weather. So for weather, what I'm thinking, and let me bring us back over. So I'm just kind of thinking like daily weather. Just something so that you can peek at it real quick, see, what the temperature is right now, what the high and low are, any precipitation. And I'm probably going to do wind just because where I live, wind is kind of an important factor. We're about to go into tornado season. So that can be really important to know. If the wind's really high, I might need to bring in my outdoor chairs so that they don't blow away. And of course, with that also comes lots and lots of rain. We get lots of thunderstorms here where I am. So knowing if it's going to rain is important because the backyard will just turn into soup and it will be one wet puppy every time I take her outside. So it's always good to know. But the thought around daily weather is just today's weather, not really worrying about, tomorrow or this week. I feel like maybe that's something we could add in down the line, but right now I think it's not too much to worry about because you can pull it up on your phone online and look up the details for longer periods of time. So I'm just going to stick to daily weather. So let's think about how we could put weather in this box. So I think the big information, thinking about like the hierarchy of information, the big thing is going to probably be the temperature, because that's the thing I'm probably going to want to know like right away is what is the temperature right now outside. So trying maybe to do some different things with shapes, and maybe I use a number and the background is like the indication of the weather for the day, like a sun or clouds, that kind of thing. So maybe I'm going to do a circle, get this centered, keep going with our, 29, 30, there we go. That's why those were off. So I have that. I'm going to do a little box in here. Are we making a web or mobile app? That's a great question. This is technically a tablet app. So it's going to be run on a touchscreen tablet, and probably about 13, I don't know. I'm like doing this like this is real measurement, but probably about like 15 inches. I think that would probably be good. I'm trying to think of like a normal, like measuring off my laptop. I think about 13 inches. But it's going to run only on the laptop. So it's going to be more like an app than a website. But let's put in here. So this is going to kind of be like the weather for the day is what I'm thinking right now. So like that would be a cloud, a sun, rain clouds, a lightning bolt, whatever it is for that day. And then inside, I'm going to put the temperature. And I still want it to be pretty big because I want it to catch my eye. So I'm going to get it here in the center of the circle. And again, because this is going to be content, it's going to be the temperature, the number. And right now we're just playing around with stuff. I'm going to make it that dark gray again. Okay, so that's going to be our weather, temperature, and then kind of, a little icon or photo or something behind it of what the weather is. The other thing we were going to do was the high and low. So I always kind of, high and low are kind of like ranges, right? Because the temperature could be anywhere in between those throughout the day. So I feel like it should go on either side of my current temperature, because that feels, like this is where it is right now, in between this range is kind of where my mind is going. So I'm going to copy paste this. I'm going to make this, actually, just going to reduce it like this. I don't want to make it too small. What do you guys think? Felt that? Seems kind of okay. And then I'll put one on this side. And make sure they're even. And make sure they're centered. Not loving it, but I'm also not hating it. And that's a good thing with design is keep testing out ideas. Because even though I'm looking at this and I'm like, I might already want to change my idea, I'm going to keep going because I could figure out something while making this that I actually do enjoy. So I'm going to keep going. Do you do code for this app later? Hopefully that's the plan. We're going to see how long perfectionist me takes to design the app. Because with designing, I also think about how it's going to function, which is the big thing as a designer. You also always want to think about how it's going to work, because it's going to be something that people interact with, right? So you want to think about how it works. So I like to design first and then go build. So after we design, then we'll go build. But yeah, so tune back in and we'll do that another time. But we still have plenty of time for today, but I don't think we'll get the design all the way finished today. So just as a heads up, it'll probably be another session or two before we start getting into code. But yeah, we're gonna jump into that too. Thank you for asking. I'll grab a quick drink of water. Okay, so we have our temperature, an icon of some sort or picture of, clouds or something, high and low temperature. What else did we want? Let me refresh my memory. The precipitation and wind. So let's figure out how we're going to do precipitation and wind. Now, I kind of like the idea of using, instead of writing out like precipitation, because it's a very long word, of doing an icon. So I'm going to keep using circles to represent icons right now, because remember, these are going to be just numbers. So I'm going to do a circle, probably not that big. I don't know. I might scale this up because I feel like I have so much space and everything's kind of like huddled into the middle. So probably scale things up. But for right now, we'll do this. So we'll do that. Let me copy paste, because this would then be the precipitation percentage, because that's usually how it's presented. So much fun when you have tongue twisters as words. Because when you look at a weather app, it usually says more like chance of precipitation 10% or something like that. So I'm going to hold shift, and then I'm going to kind of subtract it a little bit this way. I'm going to keep it centered on the icon, because I feel like that will look better than just because icons, depending on which ones you get, like I showed up there before with the edit and the minus, or not the minus, the times symbol. They aren't always exactly like the same size, and so if I center it, then it kind of makes sure that it always looks aligned, instead of putting it where they're both aligned at the bottom together. Then if the icon is designed more like in the top right corner, then it looks off. So I like to do it kind of a little bit more in the center. So that would be our precipitation. I'm just going to do the exact same thing, just trying to create patterns, because that makes it easier to understand. I had that one aligned on the outside of that one, but I feel like that makes it look unaligned. So I'm going to pull it back in. And now, once again, I'm going to go in and I'm going to group. So I'm going to group that. I'm going to group these together. Group. And then, because these are going to be on the same line across. Right, there we go. I was like, why is it not selecting? Group. Okay. So now I'm going to kind of play around with it a little bit. I feel like these, that's right, they're equal. Saw it. There we go. So that's center. And so now sometimes you have to like step back and look at a design versus, being like super close. And I'll be honest, I'm not liking it. I want to do something else, but part of me is also thinking I don't need this much space for weather. And so I know, let me zoom out here. So I know first idea was to 4 things splits equally, into 4 equal boxes inside the screen. But it doesn't have to be that way. This was just the first idea to play around with. I kind of like the idea of reducing the space needed for weather to give more space in other areas. So that's going to be the idea we try next. But I'm going to keep going with what we have, because I'm still figuring out other things while I'm working on this design. Because I think this would look better if I kind of pull everything in tighter into like more of like a straight column underneath this. I think trying to spread it out to fill the space, not working. So let's move on to calendar, and then we'll try that idea next, where we kind of maybe put weather up in the corner or something, and then move the other pieces around. So calendar, let me refresh what I wanted to do for calendar. So calendar, want to see today's events, the ability to see the week's events, and maybe the ability to see the month's events. This is one where, months, especially designing a calendar for a whole month. That's a lot of boxes, a lot of numbers. And just with how tiny everything has to be able to fit content on each date in a calendar, could be, everything's too too tiny to be able to really see it. And I think that's one where we'll save it for later. I think we'll stick with seeing what's going on today, and then the ability to see what's happening this week, because I think that's a little bit more doable. Calendars are always fun to do because they are really great practice for aligning things, because you have to have, designing just a calendar itself. You have all your days of the week, all the boxes. You have to have the numbers all in the same place in the, whatever corner you use of the box. So, all right. So let's think about it as if we're just looking at today's events. So I'm kind of thinking similar to the to-dos and the grocery list, but I don't know about y'all. I do not have that many events in my calendar day today. So I'm not going to need that much space. So I probably, let's say, like today, especially because we're all at home right now, I have probably like an errand to run, and, like probably only a couple things in a day at most. So, oops, I was holding shift, which if you don't know, that allows you to create perfect shapes, but I don't want a perfect square, so I'm gonna let go. And I'm also thinking about the size that this needs to be, because I want to probably put in like the name of the event, the time, if it has an address of a place I need to be, any notes, like if it's, a trip to somewhere and I need to make sure I bring, my suitcase, and I need to make sure the car has gas, things like that. So I want to give it a good amount of space. Since I don't have that many events, I can give each event lots of space to put in lots of information. Misspelled calendar. I'm not surprised. Thank you for noting it. Oops, not capital A. When I typed it earlier, I was like, I don't think that's right, but I'm going to keep going. But thank you for calling me out on it. It happens all the time. So same thing, since this is going to be content, let's make it darker gray. Center it here. I think these are both off. That's okay. We'll worry about them later. So let's see. So that's one event. It's 29 in between. I kind of feel like a little bit of a bigger space in between. I'm trying to think. I'm going to kind of leave it at 2. Because like I said, don't have a very active social calendar. So I think 2 is probably going to be a good amount. So I'm going to kind of center this more. There we go. That's the center of the thing. And I think that doesn't look too bad. And then I'm thinking that maybe there's going to be like a button to see the whole week. So let me add, oops, don't need the shift. Again, so it's going to be some piece of content. Let's make it kind of a color. And I don't want it too close to the edge of, I don't have anything here to model it. You don't want to put it too close to the edge of the screen. Same thing for websites, apps, anything, just because the edge of the screen sometimes has like a bevel to it, and it's really hard to tap there because your finger can't quite get to that spot. So you want to make sure that buttons are big enough, but also like have some space from the edges of the screen, from the sides and from the top and bottom. So this is pretty good distance away from the top and bottom. I'll bring it in just a little bit more. Okay, so that would be 2 calendar events for today, the ability to see what the week looks like. And we can worry about designing for the week going forward. So a little bit. So let's bump this out so we can kind of see what this looks like. So this was idea number 1. Not bad, not great, but not bad. So things that I learned while making this. I think the grocery list and to-dos will do good in this sort of list and columns format. Um, it allows me to put quite a few grocery items and quite a few to-do items on here without having to have like multiple pages. Um, I think this would probably be enough, but if I was going to have a long grocery list, I think we could have, same like we did here, like a little button to view the rest of them. But I think those, especially, having the text in there, the ability to edit and delete it, I think will be good. We are missing the ability to create new, so I just thought of that while we were doing this. So we will need a button to do that. I'm going to keep it aligned here. Leave it at 35. Let's do the same thing over here. Okay. And then I'm going to go ahead, just so they're all aligned, I'm going to align that button too. Okay, so that would be our create new grocery item, create new to-do item. So I'm kind of liking how the list format is working there. I feel like that's going to work really well for those. The weather, definitely not liking. Sometimes it's also hard to really see how this is going to work with boxes and circles. So one thing that you can do if you're looking at something and you're like, I'm not sure if I like it, switch it out for actual text, actual icons, and see what you think that, because it could change your mind. But I think even if I were to do that right now, too spread out, has too much space. There's not a lot of information that needs to be shown here, so it doesn't need that whole box. And then calendar, kind of similar. I feel like you could use the space really well for calendar items. Like if you had big items, especially, you could add maybe like a map if it's a location you've never been to. But I could also see minimizing the calendar too, and it just kind of notes that don't forget, you have the dog groomer appointment today, and you have friends coming over to play D&D or something. So that's what we've got so far for iteration number 1. So I'm going to copy paste just so we start a little bit fresher, and I'm going to go ahead and group these so that I can kind of move them off here, just so I have them for reference. I know they're on the other side, but just bear with me. Put those up there. Actually, now that that's gone, I can do this. It's a little bit faster. Again, I'm grouping, so Control G, and then I move it all at once. Okay, so now we have a blank space again. So I think I'm going to start with the one that was troubling me last time. And let me make sure I save too. So Control S to save, which was weather. So let's start with weather. So I'm feeling top left corner. I don't know why. It's just feeling. We're just going to go with it. So just now, off the top of my head, I was kind of like, what if it was like the sun or the rain cloud? But it was kind of like peeking in. You know what I mean? Like how we all used to draw suns in like elementary school. You used to like do a little thing in the corner of your paper and fill it in yellow and then do the little lines from the corner. It's kind of what came to mind. So that's what I'm kind of thinking. Kind of make it so it's a little bit even, a little bit better. Okay, but we're still playing, so I'm not worrying about perfecting it right now. So then off of that, and now remember when things are grouped, you have to keep clicking to dig down into the group. So right now I have the whole thing selected. And if I'm trying to get to that square, now I have this selected. Double click again, and now I have the square selected. So that way I can copy it, and then I need to click out, so I'm back out here and paste it. So, oops, I'm holding the wrong button. I was like, maybe reduce that a little bit. So I think that's a little too close. I kind of want to see more of the sun. That could be there. And just for fun, we're going to make it yellow. Maybe that helps with visualizing and kind of think about this. So that's not a pretty yellow. There we go. That's more of a yellow. Let me get rid of that border too. There we go. So it's kind of like the sun is peeking out from the corner. So we have our temperature for the day. We also need to have our high and low. I'm trying to think, should I kind of curve it around or should I kind of keep it to the side so it's kind of out of the way? I'm not sure which one is better. So we're going to copy the shape that I used for high and low. And let me zoom back in here a little bit. Kind of out there. Okay, so this is what we had for high and low. I'm going to reduce the size just a little bit. What are we at? 52 by 52? That's not bad. So maybe just so that they're the same size, I'll copy and paste. They don't need to be too far apart, just far enough apart that you tell that they're two different things, but they can still be pretty close together because they're all part of the weather section. Bring this in a little bit. There we go, 13. I like even numbers, that's just me. I kind of move it out here. Maybe if I center that on the box. I'm kind of liking that. What do you guys think? I feel like that's kind of turning out a little bit better. I'm liking that a little bit more. And then we had our precip and wind. That was the other one. So I'm going to click into this and I'm going to copy this whole group. Oops. I'm so used to being on a Mac that the scrolling is throwing me off for which direction to go. Okay. So this will be our precipitation. Trying to think if I feel like we should stack them because I don't want the text to be too tiny. So again, I'm going to put in some actual text here just to make sure I'm not getting things too small because you don't want this to be unreadable. So this is 16-point font, which is not too small. And we can always bump it up once we fill up the rest of the screen and when we choose our final design. So let's say precipitation is 14%. So inside that box, that kind of fits. Looks like I could bump it up a little bit. Let's see how 18 looks in there. Oh, 18 looks pretty good. So I think that's a pretty good size. This icon may not need to be that large as it is right now. I want to make sure that they're lined up on this left side here. Maybe not. Line it up. There we go, with the center of the bubble. See, what I'm probably like, what is she looking at? So I'm trying to figure out how to align these two, which this is getting a little nitty gritty. Don't really need to worry about it, but sometimes these things pop in and they bother you and you have to fix them. So I was trying to think of maybe if I align them to this left edge, but then they kind of you see how they kind of stick out on the right there a little bit, and it's bothering me just a little bit. So if I try and put it in the center, so it's, there we go. So it's lined up in the center. It doesn't look too bad, but it could maybe change if we change this to an actual icon. So I'm going to do that just so we can test. So once in, I'm going to come over here to Font Awesome. I'm going to look up, let's do Cloud. Back over here to XT, Control V, and I'm going to change the color. Right now it's white. Get black. Oh, perfect. It's already there. So that's pretty tiny. Let's bump that up to 24. And then that's still kind of small. Let's do 30. That's a little big. And this is really what designers do all day. They're like, let's bump it up. That's a little big. Let's turn it back down. Now let's do small. Let's go back up. Happens all day long. So I'm going to do, let's do 28. That feels a little bit better. So, okay. I feel like that's not too bad. And I think once it's actual content, making this all like align will be a little bit easier. So I'm going to kind of let that be right now. So that's kind of our weather section. And it's a little tiny up in the corner. But once we put the rest of the content on, that may not look so tiny. And we may also be able to make it bigger. So I might come up here. So we kind of liked how this was going out. And I don't think I necessarily need the name grocery list and the name to-dos, because it might be easy to differentiate the two just by what's in the list. So I'm not going to worry about putting a title right now. We can always add a title later if it's too hard to tell that this is the grocery list versus that being the to-dos. So make sure I grab that too. And let's come down here. So I'm going to zoom out, out a little bit so I can see the whole screen a little bit better. I'm going to group them together. Okay. So we have our grocery items. Kind of want to make sure I keep them aligned here on the side. So we have those. Let's bring in our to-dos. And same thing here. This idea doesn't have to stick. I guess I could have copied and pasted. That's a little bit faster. Say the same thing. Okay. Oops. All right, let's align these in the center. Okay. So right now we have our two main lists, our grocery items and our to-dos. Still need our calendar. And I'm kind of thinking, what if the calendar is kind of along the top here? Kind of like this. Oops. Just copy paste this one. There we go. So we got our calendar items. Oops. Shift. There we go. Let's center that too. All right. So maybe we have our calendar items up here. We have these down below, and we have plenty of space so we could make all of these bigger. So I'm going to bring this down a little bit. I think maybe I'll bring this down and over a bit because I think we have plenty of space to make all of this bigger. Now my text, oh, did it not get my icon? There, I think I got it. There we go. I think we can make this bigger. I think that's looking better. Yeah, I think I like that better. It still feels like there's a lot of content. It's random, tiny thing. Goodbye. Okay. Still feels like there's a lot of space. Put that back in the center now that that's there. Kind of around in this area. I also need that button. Just copy one from here. I think maybe to the side, like calendar event for today, and then switches it. So this is kind of another idea. Remember, we're just playing around. So what I'm kind of liking right now, I'm kind of liking the weather coming out from the corner. I almost kind of like the idea of maybe it collapses, like it hides up here, and then when you click the sun or whatever it is, this all kind of drops down, and then you click it and it kind of hides away. And I kind of like that idea. So I kind of like keeping it in the corner. I'm liking that idea right now. For the lists, oops, moved it a little bit. The lists, I think, are still doing fine. I think this makes it so that I can increase the font size which just makes it a lot more readable. So I think, let's look at how big this text was. That was 14-point font, which isn't too tiny, but it is getting a little tiny for text on, tablets and things, especially when I'm thinking that, oops, I'm connected by cord. I'm not going to be like this looking at the tablet, right? Like it's going to be probably mounted on a wall and I'm going to be like glancing as I walk past. So I think increasing the size of these boxes will help take up the space so it doesn't look too empty, but also makes it so I can increase the font size so that it's a little bit larger. So I'm gonna move this kind of out of the way for right now. Oh, nope, that's just gonna add, it's gonna reduce the spacing, which is gonna do for all of them. Okay. There we go. So that's kind of what I'm thinking, where it's a little bit bigger, but it's going to a little mad at me. So I'm gonna copy one over here, increase the size, copy two. I'm going to use repeat grid up here in the right corner, and you can see I can go left, or I can go, or sorry, right, or I can go down. And so we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so now I have that. So I'm just going to delete out those two things. All right, already as soon as I put this in there, I was like, yeah, that feels like it fits and fills up the space a lot better. Just do 40 for right now. Oops, clicked into it too many times. Okay, so that feels like it takes up more of the space. I still feel like the top space, not doing it for me. I'm thinking maybe we do stack the calendar events. Should I put it under? It's kind of the pattern for it to be under. It's not letting me do it at 35. We align it to this outside here. And then maybe this, instead of, I keep double clicking the wrong thing. Maybe this kind of comes out this way instead, so it kind of fills the space a little bit more. So that's feeling a little bit more put together to me. I still think like this could be a little bit bigger, so it takes up more of the space, but, and these I can have them come up higher. Actually, I think just so they're not too close to the bottom here, I'm going to bring them up anyways. And then more, let's do it this way. I want to get that. That stuff kind of want to stay in the corner. It is going down. Okay, that would be the center of the box. So I'm going to kind of do this. I'm going to bump this up just a little bit. I'm going to do that again. So what I'm doing is I'm kind of taking all of the content and I'm centering all of the content on the screen. I feel like that looks a little bit better. So I think this can now increase even more in size. Make sure I get everything but that sign, so that it kind of sticks out here. And now just because of the way we're aligning things, I kind of want it to, there we go, align with that side a little bit more. And then we can bring, oops, we hold shift so that my circle stays more circular. I'm kind of liking this a little bit better. What do you guys think? What do y'all think? I feel like that's feeling a little bit more organized. It feels a little bit more aligned. It feels like it kind of fits with maybe, you know, how you would use it. Like this stuff would be more stuff that you would interact with as far as like editing, updating, and stuff like that. And this is kind of more passive information, where you just are going to look at it. You know, you're not so much going to interact with it as much as you might the ones down here. So I'm kind of leaning towards this one, or between the two. Yeah, I think that one's doing good. Now I'm trying to think if I have an idea for a third iteration, because I'm kind of liking what I got. And I kind of, one thing that is also kind of helpful in the process is if you're kind of stuck, you're not sure. Sometimes, you know, if you're kind of feeling good on an iteration, bump that up a fidelity level, you know, throw in some actual, throw in some actual text, um, throw in some icons, and then take a look at it again, because these buttons may need to be bigger, which might affect how this looks and stuff like that when you start adding in real content. So I think that's going to be what I'm going to do. So I'm going to do that next. Is take this and copy paste so that I have it here. I'm going to kind of get rid of these so we don't need them anymore, and they're kind of busy, kind of cluttering. Just to keep this a low fidelity level, I'm going to turn this back into, you know what, whatever. We're doing what we want. So I'm going to leave it as color. So this actually needs to be rain because this is our precipitation. So let me find rain, and we'll kind of start adding in a couple things. Raindrops, or there were showers. There's showers. I guess it's kind of like heavy showers, and then this is just rain. We'll do rain. And if anyone's wondering why some of these are dark and some of these are not, you can see they're pro versus the free ones. So I'm just using the free ones, so it's really easy to play around with. And then I can always switch to whatever icons I want to use, whether they're on Awesome or I want to use somebody else's icons. Gives me that ability. So I'm going to switch out this one for our rain, and you can see how big that the cloud was, and now how it seems not so big this one is. So that's kind of what happens when you play around with icons. They take up the same amount of space, but depending on what content is inside of them, like the cloud took up more space in this box, and now the cloud takes up less space because it has to give space for raindrops. So sometimes that means you need to change up your fonts. So let's do, ooh, that's a little big. It was at what, 51? Let's try 55. I think I got a little too excited there. I'm gonna save that. And then we don't need that box anymore. And let's make this black for now. Okay, so we're coming to the end of what I'm going to be working on today. So we're going to start building this out, bumping it up a fidelity level, adding in some actual text content, some icons, keeping it all black and white except for the sun, because it is a good reminder that that's supposed to be a sun and not, you know, a circle or something. So yeah, we're going to keep working on this some more. I think the next person that's going to be hanging out with all of us or all of you, is Gil, I believe. And you can check out his on Monday, I believe, about the same time this one started, is when he's going to go on Monday doing some CSS stuff. And he's an awesome teacher. So if you liked hanging out with me today, come back and check out him, and then check out our Treehouse social media places, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all that stuff. They will keep you updated on when the next live streams are going and what, you know, the live stream content's going to be. So I hope you all had fun hanging out with me today. Again, my name is Megan. I teach and hang out with students in both the UX tech degree and in the Python tech degree. I work here at Treehouse, which is a fabulous place, and it has great content for learning how to design and code. So go check it out, teamtreehouse.com, and there's free trials to do a tech degree and to check out our content. It's really awesome. I can't recommend it enough. So go check it out if you're enjoying this. go check out UX tech degree. If you are like, not my jam, this was fun, but I'd rather like build it, go check out, Python or full stack. If you want to look at like the back end, if you're more like front end where you want to look at building this actual design, then check out the front end tech degree. But that's my time for today. We'll keep working on this again next time, and I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. Stay safe out there. Bye, everyone.